how I play basketball, just good brand of basketball. I know how to, make winning plays, play the right way. So, I think I'm feeling pretty well.
It's Bridges for three. It's Bridges, and Cornette comes out on him, switching with Pritchard.
There seems to be a fairly unique problem in New York. The Knicks made some major moves in the offseason and are going into this season with some of the highest expectations a Knicks team has ever had since the Patrick Ewing era. To be honest, I think this is the highest expectations that the Knicks have had since the 1970s. But there's one glaring issue that might hold this team back from winning it all, and it has to do with one of their brand new acquisitions that they gave up a lot to attain. Mikal Bridges, for some reason, debuted a brand new jump shot. Well, we're going to dive into this brand new shot release, whether it was necessary or not, and what it can mean for the New York Knicks moving forward. Before we get to the content, we're making a huge push on Snapchat showing you guys what I do behind the scenes. Make sure you follow us over there because we're trying to make a push to 50K followers. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. We dominated opening night on Prize Picks, hitting on the Anthony Edwards free square and making an easy $75, and then making another $150 on my Hauser LeBron James picks. We had a lot of NFL success as well, all in all making about $400 over the past week. Now, if you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you make an entry of $5 or more. I give away my picks for free on Instagram at TheFlightMike or Snapchat at FlightMikeSnap, and thank you Prize Picks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Last season, the New York Knicks took the leap that they needed to become true contenders. They found the perfect winning formula by leading on Jalen Brunson to lead their offense, Donte DiVincenzo to be their X factor, and the breakout of guys like Josh Hart and Isaiah Hartenstein to carry them defensively. They even made a mega deal at the deadline to get OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. But ultimately, the season would end in disappointment. And by disappointment, I mean this is a very layered response. The Knicks would lose to the Indiana Pacers in a series where both teams were absolutely battered and bruised. And even despite that, they still had a historic shooting performance in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, but alas, it wasn't enough. During the offseason, despite the anticipation of getting OG Anunoby and Julius Randle back from injury, it was clear that the Knicks needed one more piece to put them over the edge. So they went out and made a trade with their crosstown rivals, the Brooklyn Nets, the day before the draft to acquire Mikal Bridges.
The Knicks coming off an incredible season despite being riddled with injuries, and they're now going all in for next season after acquiring Mikal Bridges from the Nets.
I mean, if you thought the Karl Anthony Towns trade was insane, you should look at the haul that they originally traded for Mikal Bridges. They wanted Bridges so badly that they traded Brooklyn 5 first-round picks dating all the way to 2031, a second-round pick, and Bojan Bogdanovic, who averaged 15 points per game last year. They had to give all that up in order to reunite Mikal Bridges with Donte DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, and Josh Hart. That's a crazy package for a guy that hasn't even made an all-star team. Still, when the trade initially happened, it felt like Bridges was a perfect fit in New York. He's getting to play with his Villanova buddies. Fans even called them the Villanova Knicks. And his elite 3-and-D style of play is exactly what New York needs to compete at the highest level. Especially when you have a head coach that emphasizes defense constantly, Mikal Bridges was the perfect fit. But now his fit with the team is definitely in question. Mikal Bridges shocked a lot of the world when he introduced a brand new jump shot. And let's just say it looks like a massive downgrade, and even Anthony Edwards thinks so. Now, to give you an idea of how pointless this jump shot change was, last year, Mikal Bridges averaged 7 3-pointers a game. On those 7 3-pointers per game, he was able to hit 37% of his 3-pointers. And for some reason, he completely ruined it. I mean, just take a look at this side-by-side comparison between this year and last year. This year, his jumper is much slower and much more vertical. Also, that his release point could be a little higher. It almost looks like he has the same hitch that Markelle Fultz had in Philadelphia. Last year, year though, his jumper was much more fluid. He was releasing the ball much quicker, and no, he's not releasing the ball as high. But the rhythm, fluidity, and overall naturality of his jumper last year more than make up for the lower release point. And look guys, there's been moments in NBA history where we've seen jump shot changes, whether you want to go all the way back to when Tristan Thompson decided to start shooting free throws with his right hand as opposed to his left hand, or more famously, my favorite example was when Lonzo Ball completely remade his jump shot once he got traded to the New Orleans Pelicans. It was without a doubt one of the most impressive things I've ever seen an NBA player do, and it made me respect Lonzo Ball so much considering how difficult it is to change a jump shot. But in that case, it made a lot of sense. Lonzo wasn't hitting 37% of his threes. In his first year with the Los Angeles Lakers, he was able to hit 31% of his threes when he attempted about 6 3-pointers per game, and in his second year with the Lakers, he was able to hit about 33% of his threes. Once he changed his jump shot, he nailed 38% of his threes for the New Orleans Pelicans before hitting 42% of his threes in his brief time with the Chicago Bulls. In that instance, when you go from a player that is hitting 31% of his 3-pointers to 42% of your 3-pointers, then yes, definitely change your jump shot. But in the case of Mikal Bridges, he's never had a problem throughout his career shooting. I mean, in his third year in the NBA, he hit 43% of his threes. Throughout his career, he's been a 38% shooter from 3. So this change is more along the lines of what happened to Markelle Fultz before he started playing NBA basketball, as opposed to what Lonzo Ball did. It seems like it's a clear regression. The change makes absolutely no sense, and there isn't anybody to blame but Bridges himself. Bridges told Knicks reporter Christian Winfield this offseason that he's been trying to fix his jump shot for 7 years to get it back to how it was all the way back at Villanova, even though his new jumper looks nothing like the shooting motion he had in college.
When I came out of college, it's just, I kind of tweaked it a little bit, and then my second year in the league, had the hitch, and then try to build back from that.
Well, if you look at his efficiency from his third year in the league, you'd think that he fixed whatever hitch he felt immediately. But nope. Despite shooting 42.5% on 4.4 threes per game in 2021, with a shot that looked purer than ever, he still felt like there was a problem with his jump shot that he needed to address 3 years later. Sure, he hasn't come close to matching his efficiency from 2021, but 38 and 37% in the last 2 seasons is more than good enough, believe me, especially considering the massive spike in volume once he got to Brooklyn. Mikal Bridges' role changed completely once he got traded from the Phoenix Suns to the Brooklyn Nets, so it wouldn't be fair to expect him to be as efficient as he was during the time that he spent with Phoenix.
New career high for you, 45 points. What was the key and how were you able to get it done?
Man, just being aggressive. My teammates found me.
Last season with the Nets, 46% of Bridges' shot attempts were from beyond the arc. For comparison, Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers in NBA history and the guy that Bridges has been compared to numerous times, only shot a 3-pointer 28% of the time last year. Bridges' 46% is more comparable to someone like Damian Lillard, who shot 49% of his shots from beyond the arc last year. And Dame is without a doubt a top 10 shooter in NBA history. That just goes to show you how much Bridges has relied on his 3-pointer over the last few seasons. And if that 3-point volume stays consistent, he's in for a rough season this year. Now, if you're hoping that this would just be a preseason experiment, then Knicks fans were extremely disappointed, as prior to the New York Knicks' first game of the season, Mikal Bridges decided to continue working on his jump shot during pre-game warm-ups. And I even tweeted out a video about it. I actually got more numbers than my average tweet, because Mikal Bridges randomly decided to change his jump shot despite shooting 38% from 3 his entire career. And it would just get way worse from there. If you guys watched the Knicks versus the Boston Celtics, you know that it was a complete blowout. And I'm not necessarily saying that Knicks fans should be panicking and automatically trying to trade Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, because the New York Knicks are a newly formed super team that don't have that much experience playing with each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges do, but Karl Anthony Towns was literally just acquired a few weeks ago. But fans were very concerned because coming into this game, Mikal Bridges really struggled with his jump shot, and it's truly a bizarre storyline because you didn't need to change your jump shot to begin with, but this actually Anunoby continued into the game. Mikal Bridges went scoreless in the first half, but he would finish the game with 16 points, 7 for 13 shooting, which included 2 of 7 from 3, 2 assists in 35 minutes. It wasn't the greatest debut, but it wasn't the most terrible debut, and I'm assuming that's a huge reason why they lost 132 to 109 to the Boston Celtics. But you could tell that all of Bridges' teammates are kind of downplaying this, like Josh Hart here.
The background noise about Mikal, his shot, all the other, like, it's impressed. We don't care about it. He puts the work in every day. Like, he's gonna be good. The talk about around it is stupid, and the stupidity to it.
And Bridges doesn't think this has anything to do with his jump shot at all whatsoever.
And my teammates keep finding me, just making one. I think that's pretty much it. Just making one is just like letting the lid off. But that's pretty much it. Just teammates keep finding me. Just staying aggressive, and that's pretty much it.
What sucks about this the most, though, is that this was completely avoidable, and it should have never happened. His jumper was okay, and he still decided to try and bring back his Nova jumper as soon as he teams up with his Nova boys. In his 4 preseason games this year, Bridges has shot an abysmal 2 of 19 from 3, including a 0 for 10 performance in New York's final game against the Wizards. I mean, Jason Tatum changed his jump shot this offseason too, removing that sway he did with his hips, but that was a minor change to smoothen out his shot a little bit more. He didn't completely change his jumper, and the proof is right there in the pudding. Tatum shot 39% from 3 in his 4 preseason games, which is actually an improvement on his efficiency from last year. Bridges changed his jump shot, and it immediately killed his efficiency beyond the arc, which is going to be a massive problem if it doesn't change, because his role on this offense was supposed to showcase his 3-point shooting more than he ever has in his career. He's going from being a number 1 or number 2 option in Brooklyn to being more of a spot-up guy for Jalen Brunson, but that role might not be possible now after his jump shot change.
Mikal Bridges right now at 10%, and it looks this bad. That is cause for alarm in New York.
On top of that, New York traded arguably their best shooter in Dante DiVincenzo and their best off the dribble guy after Brunson in Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns. And they did this to add even more offensive firepower to an already dangerous team, so Bridges will absolutely have some shoes to fill on the wing. Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Josh Hart will likely play a lot of minutes together this season, and Bridges is easily the most offensively sound guy out of the 3. But if he can't get it together, then Jalen Brunson and Cat are going to have to carry a heavy load on offense. On the bright side, though, the wing trio of Bridges, Hart, and Anunoby has the potential to be the greatest defensive wing trio we've ever seen. I haven't felt this excited about a potential defensive team since the Los Angeles Clippers acquired Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and they somehow that up because, well, they're the Clippers. But year after year, Anunoby, Hart, and Bridges have been amongst the league's best premier defenders, and now they're all going to be on the court at the same time. It's hard to imagine much scoring happening against these Knicks. Last year, New York already had a top 10 defense in the NBA, and that was with only 23 games from OG Anunoby. Still, Indiana shot a ridiculous 67% from the field in Game 7, which is the highest percentage in any playoff game ever. But again, the New York Knicks were injured for the most part. Regardless of his new jump shot, Bridges adds a new level of defensive intensity to this team that few in the league could. Just 3 seasons ago, Bridges finished as the runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year award, which is an award that many people thought he got snubbed for, falling just short of Marcus Smart. One thing that will never fade away is elite defensive IQ, so even if Mikal Bridges has lost his jump shot completely, there'll always be a role for him on the defensive side of the ball.
His ability at this end to take on these matchups night in and night out, not miss a game. He understands where these guys like to be, where they want to go. He gets up into the ball, makes them uncomfortable, and makes them work.
The Knicks are in the best position they've ever been in to compete since the Ewing days. They have a superstar who can drop 40 on any given night. They have elite role players. They have an elite big man whose offensive style of play fits perfectly next to Jalen Brunson. Now they need Mikal Bridges to do what they expected him to do. They sent 5 first-round picks for this guy. They're absolutely expecting huge things out of him, and this jump shot change might completely hinder that. Still, there's a way around it. The entire Knicks starting lineup is full of guys who can shoot the ball, with Anunoby probably being the worst shooter of the 5 before this season. So maybe Bridges can learn to use his length a little bit more and attack the rim at a higher rate. Only 37% of his shots came at the rim last year, and it was at a 53% clip, which is worse than 74% of NBA players. So if he can turn that around and find the efficiency and aggressiveness at the rim with the spacing that he's playing next to in New York, there's no better opportunity for Bridges to change his offensive game and find a new role, because then his 3-and-D days might be over. But if not, this could potentially be one of the biggest flops in NBA history. Only time will tell, and I made this video just so we could keep an eye on it. If you're a Knicks fan, let me know in the comment section down below how concerned you are. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.